Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Can everyone hear me at the back? Is everything good back there? Hi. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Naomi, and I work here for Innovation Birmingham's Tech Incubator, Entrepreneurs for the Future, which helps tech startups with a 9-month program of mentorship and events, and Tech Wednesday is one of those events that we run. And obviously we have a massive community of tech startups here, which is a really big benefit of being on the program and being in this community. So welcome. Anybody who's here for the first time, double welcome. You should have your gold stars. Just privileged. So tonight is Women in Tech, which is exciting. We've got 3 great people, two of which have travelled quite far to be here this evening, so thank you so much for coming, and thank you to the rest of you for braving the weather. I haven't had to go out in it, so that's fine. Just a quick health and safety thing. We are not expecting any fires, so either guys at the back, out the back, if anything happens, guys at the front, you can go out this way. Don't go that way, because there's a wall. Before I hand over to the speakers, just so you know, we're going to give an opportunity to everybody in the room to give themselves just a 1-minute pitch. So if you've come specifically to find somebody, or if you've come because you want to network with something about something in particular, in between the speakers, just hands up and you can come out the front and give yourself a little 1-minute pitch to how I think about what we're doing. You might have noticed on your way in that we've got a new building being built over there, and that is called iCentrum, and it's very exciting. It's going to open officially April, yes, that's right. And as part of that, we're going to have a new incubator program, which Michelle, who's at the back, is going to tell us more about, because applications are open. So do you want to come and tell us more about that? Yeah.
Hi everyone. Just to introduce myself, for those of you who come regularly, you've probably seen my ugly face before. My name is Michelle Rayner. I'm the Programme Manager for the Entrepreneurs for the Future programme based in the building. But my next role is going to be working on our new incubator, which is going to be at the iCentrum building, which is actually facing that way. So it's quite dark outside, so you probably still can't see the building, but it's starting to look like that, and it will be opening mid-March with us taking on companies in April. So this incubator is actually going to be working with corporate partners. So if I just explain who's actually partnering in the incubator. So again, it's going to be similar to the Entrepreneurs for the Future programme, but we have 4 partners signed up. So as you'll see, we've got Empower, Barclays Eagle Labs, and Catapult Transport Systems and Centro, and then also the West Midlands Academic Health Science Network. So these 4 corporate partners will be working with early stage tech businesses. So for example, Empower looking for businesses related to Internet of Things. The West Midlands Academic Health Science Network are looking to work with companies in relation to digital health. Centro and the Catapult Transport Systems are looking to work with people relating to intelligent mobility. And then Barclays Eagle Labs are actually looking to work with businesses, not just fintech, but actually companies that can actually work with them and their clients. So it's quite a broad range for them. As you'll see from the timeline, applications are now open. You can find all the details about the incubator on our website, innovationbham.com. Application closes about 15th of March, with the actual incubator opening the 1st of April. And the programme is a 6-month programme working from a space free of charge, but you'll be working with one of the corporate partners. So it's a great idea for companies looking to work with a big corporate partner, to validate their business idea and to open opportunities with the connections they may have. I will be around obviously after the networking, so if anyone has any further questions, just give me a shout and I can give further details. So I hope that's okay. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, really exciting that. We've got all those partners, so do check that out. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who's Lucy from Tutor Fair. She's come all the way from London, ladies and gentlemen. You can tweet at Tech Wednesday, at Entrepreneurs First, #TechWeds, and it will come up on there. So give yourselves a shout out, follow the Twitter feeds, and you can find out Lucy's Twitter and harass her. So, warm welcome for Lucy, please.
One, two. Okay. Thank you, Naomi and Michelle, and thank you for inviting me here also. I thought it would be, I'm Lucy. I am a product manager at tutorfair.com. I'll explain a little bit more about what Tutorfair does in a moment. And I thought it would be useful and interesting to share some of the lessons we've learned at Tutorfair about things that have worked and things that haven't worked for us when it comes to these adventures in tech full of jargon, like stacking the icebox. So to give you a bit of background about how I ended up in tech with quite a non-traditional background, I studied languages at Oxford and then went into the city to a finance job, which I found largely unfulfilling, and decided that probably what I really wanted to do was start my own business. And I found the New Entrepreneurs Foundation, which is a course that's designed to give potential future business leaders some of the tools that they might need to set up a startup. And through them worked at Tutorfair, where I am still, which was my host company for the year that I was on the New Entrepreneurs Foundation. Tutorfair is a website, a marketplace where we connect tutors to parents and students who are looking for tutors, tutors who teach any subject, and we're national across the UK. The tuition happens at home, but all the lessons are booked and paid for through the website, and for every person who pays, we give free tuition to a child who wouldn't otherwise have access, and that's why Tutorfair is fair. Being inspired by being at Tutorfair and surrounded by lines of codes all the time and a room half full of techies, I joined Code First Girls to learn the very basics of coding so that I could then get a little bit more involved with the product. And one of the things that I very quickly learned getting more involved with the Tutorfair product is that good tech doesn't necessarily mean a team in a basement in isolation, necessarily. Depends if you're building a highly sophisticated machine learning algorithm. But that's something that I learned and that I was really surprised by. And what we really found very quickly with our team after we launched about 4 years ago was that the best tech team members were those who were the extroverts, who wanted to get involved, who wanted to go out with everyone, who went to the meetups and were keen to take on ownership of projects themselves. So we worked really hard to kind of move people into this sort of project ownership as well as being in the tech team. And the way we facilitated this tech's becoming commercial assets and not just tech team in their own right was sort of happened organically. People going for decisive but casual coffee breaks just to have a quick chat about this little project that they were thinking about or another one, and then walks around the blocks just to get the creative ideas flowing. And this really brought the techs in with the commercial vision to help them understand better why the commercials were asking for the stories that they were asking for, and so on and so forth. But what we then realised was that it's not just all about the text being a commercial asset. Actually, what the text started doing was inspiring and interesting the commercial team in the more technical side of the product. And the sort of outcome of that was that making your commercial team a tech asset was also a really beneficial thing. And what the text ended up encouraging was empowering the commercials to, by giving them access to things like MySQL so that they could get into the database and think creatively about new ideas with the data available, or giving them access to make small copy changes in sort of the more obscure places on the website, actually meant that they became better able to ask for tech requests that were broken down into small things and more sensible than just, we need a new interface for whatever, without necessarily understanding what all the implications that would have on the back end, and so on. Then all this communication is very well, but it's hard to go out on 10 different coffee breaks a day with your whole team. So what we established was that processes for this communication became really prescriptive and assumed that if there's a process, your team doesn't really have a brain and they just have to follow that process in order to push something through from an idea stage into actual tech implementation. And what we found instead was that having a framework for communication, so that everybody, the text and the commercials, were speaking this common language, actually worked much, much better and facilitated this seamless communication, and also helped eliminate the jargon of is the icebox stacked. So lots of people may or may not use Pivotal. We use it for our product management. It's a product management tool, and one of the places that you put all of the upcoming stories is in the icebox. And really what that means is, hello commercials, you have a story here, is it dev approved, is it commercial approved? And having a framework where you establish a main stakeholder for something in the middle who communicates with all the other relevant people and their dogs, and finds out what those stakeholders in the business want and what that particular feature means to this other person, and everybody wants a say in it, became the solution to the problem that was when the product owner was in isolation making decisions. They were often really uninformed decisions because he hadn't spoken to all of these other stakeholders and their dogs, and he hadn't spoken to the copy editor, and he hadn't spoken to the CEO, and the decisions that we were then making as a team were often really uninformed. But on the flip side, if you got everybody into a room, all the stakeholders, all the copy editor, the CEO and everybody, we couldn't come to a decision because we were deciding and designing things by committee. So having this one pinpoint in the middle, this main stakeholder, main stakeholder who works very closely with each of these people around him, solved that issue and made for properly spec'd stories, things that devs could look at straight away and say, yes, okay, we could build that next week. So the conclusion to all of that is essentially communication is key, and that having a framework for your team to communicate in and getting the team members to subscribe to that framework makes for properly spec'd, properly illustrated, demonstrated, mocked up stories, and a nicely stacked list of things to build in the future in your icebox. Thank you. Any questions? Do we do Q&A now? Okay. Yes.
No.
I've already been nominated, Naomi.
Ooh,
for a question.
I haven't even asked yet, James. Fast tracked. Wow, eager. James, over to you.
Okay, so Pia panicked, apparently. I panicked too when I got the microphone. So you mentioned about the main stakeholder who ultimately makes the decision, if I listen correctly, after being consulting with the entire business. What if that stakeholder, so I run a very small startup, nowhere near as big as you guys, and I always try and use the philosophy, let we'll go with a hunch, maybe what the main stakeholder suggests, not as formal as you guys in the framework, and then let the data prove that decision correct or not as quickly as possible. And what's the review process on that decision? Do you then just leave it there, or is there we'll visit that decision a month later, 3 months later with new data after it's gone live and say, yeah, that worked, or actually that main stakeholder was wrong and someone else was right, maybe?
Well, it's a really good question, because one of the responsibilities of the main stakeholder is to then work with the main product owner to establish what the measurement metrics for a particular feature should be. And the problem with when we just had one person in charge of all of the features and stories was that he was thinking about the next project and the next quarter, and actually we couldn't keep up with what we built previously, and things were being built and forgotten about. And so that's why we took the approach, okay, well, if we give all of the experts, all of these experts here, the domain expert and all the stakeholders, access to something like MySQL with a short training, so that they can actually look into the database and find out the data beforehand. We made the things we build based on the data we found from that were way better features than when we were just scrappily building things and then trying to find out afterwards. Having said that, though, we newly reformed our idea of building an MVP, because previously we're a team of 11. We would sometimes really quickly do something because it's the MVP, quick, just get it out and see what happens. But we weren't really making an MVP a feature that we could actually learn something from. We were just making it the minimum thing that would function, not the minimum thing that we could learn the maximum from. So being able to quantify what we build in numbers first, and then building it those have been all our successful features. So I suppose deciding what it is that you want to learn, looking at how you could learn it from the existing data, and then building it and then measuring it after in the kind of 4-step process has been our best solution.
We're still in the MVP.
You're still in the MVP.
Dish it out.
Yeah.
I understood. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Any more questions? Yep.
Sorry.
Hi, I understand you studied languages.
Yes.
What is your advice for young women who might want to switch from non-technical to come into the IT world?
When I studied languages and graduated, I went into the city and didn't really know that the tech world really existed. That is changing now. Universities are much more well-informed, so I think a kind of earlier ingraining the possibilities earlier is getting better. But I would say that the main thing is to talk to as many people. My main piece of advice for someone would be talk to as many people as possible and surround yourself by people who are really going to fill you with energy. And it doesn't matter who they are, whether they're a girl or a boy, they're likely to be young people doing a career that is roughly the same, and that whatever they're experiencing in their career is because of the stage of the career they're at, not whether they're a boy or a girl. So I think to find to pick out people who will really empower you and support you to get to the place you want to be, whether it's meeting them through something like Code First Girls or going to meetups, generally putting yourself out there and picking the people who you think will fill you with energy and power to learn more would be my main.
Thank you very much.
Can we have just one more? This was at the guy was at the front first. Sorry.
No, I just need that. Sorry.
Pia, sorry, I saw this guy first.
Oh, sorry.
I've got a cold and silly. It's completely rubbish this evening.
Thank you. You mentioned that obviously communication is the key.
Yes.
I'm interested to know, when you have stakeholders and you have many people in your team, do you have specific platforms that you use in terms of communicating so you can keep everything in one in one particular arena, and also how does this work if you have some of your team members abroad, say for example not in the same city?
So second question, everybody is in the same place at the moment, so not sure, but the way that relates to the first question is that, to be totally honest, that is one of the issues that we've found, having a platform that everybody can go into and see what all the things in the pipeline are, so not the things that are ready for development, because that's what Pivotal is there for, and the Icebox and Pivotal is there for, but all the things that are coming up in the pipeline, we really struggle to give the team visibility and to communicate that, and that is why at the moment it basically all gets communicated through walks around the block and coffee chats. So back to the audience, if anyone has any kind of tool for a specking pipeline, we would both love. Use Trello. Yeah. We found that to be the best so far, but doesn't mean you end up copying and pasting a lot into your other tools. So any other thing from Trello? No one's found the silver bullet. Okay. We should make that.
We're going to have to move on. So thank you very much, Lucy. Can we have a round of applause, please? Okay. Next up we've got Ashley, who's come all the way from Kenilworth. From Kenilworth. My geography is never good. But before we get on, we'll sorting out the microphones. If somebody wants to give a 1 minute pitch, there was a hand right there. Josh, do you want to come up? All right. You want to
that one? I can try to shout.
No.
So good evening. This is going to be a bit of a left field one. How many of you have come across edible insects in the last year? Okay. How many of you have come across it in, like, I'm a Celebrity style? How many of you have come across it in cricket flour? Okay, so cricket flour, in essence, 67% protein, has amino acids in order to break down that protein, has the same omegas as you would find in fish, and it has the vitamins in it like zinc, magnesium, iron. That, as well as sustainability elements, and the fact it tastes of a nutty, rich taste and can be used in a lot of different products, made me think there was a business here. We've established the Natural Grub Company this year. It's me and my co-founder, who's based in Brand. We've got the head of Lego Marketing as one of our founding partners as well. We are part of the Virgin Startups and developing a product range. We've worked with Entimo Farms, which is the best sourcing Canadian farm, and now the UK and European wholesale distributor to anyone looking to get into this environment. So why at Tech Wednesday am I making a pitch? It's really about, we're now looking for digital marketing experience, people with social guru expertise, and anyone in food innovation or ideas that think they could put me in touch with different people within that environment. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So Ashley, over to you with your digital freelancing.
Thank you. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. All right, so good evening. My name is Ashley. Thank you for joining me for this talk about digital freelancing. So before I get started, let me just tell you a little bit about my background. Coincidentally, I also come from a foreign language background. And I started digital freelancing in 2014. I got my foot in the door as a language coach for an e-learning company while I got some experience with web development on the side. About 6 months ago, things started to go quite a bit more smoothly for me because I joined a mastermind group. So my mastermind group has helped me just get focused and move my business forward. And now I've come into something that I love even more than what I was doing before, which is technical writing. So, as you can tell, I'm a very multidisciplinary person. I have a lot of interests, and that's part of why I wanted to be a digital freelancer, is because I had resources available to me that made it so that I could start a business on a very low budget, and as an entrepreneur, I could decide what I do. So that that was my reason for becoming a digital freelancer, but there are many motivations for becoming one. So in this talk, I will discuss 3 points. So what is a digital freelancer, how it influences tech, and also how a mastermind group can help digital freelancers overcome some of the common challenges they'll face. So first of all, what is digital freelancing? Well, we have lots of gurus on the internet trying to tell us what that entails. So you may think it means quitting your day job and making 6 figures in your first year. Or for you, it could be typing away at a laptop on a beach somewhere. So, of course, these are very appealing ideas, and I would love to do that, but so far this has not been the experience for me or for the other digital freelancers that I do know. So then, what do digital freelancers really do? Okay, so basically, we are freelancers, but we work remotely. So we are location independent. We can work from pretty much anywhere. And although I'd like to work on the beach, I usually just work from home. I work with clients primarily from Italy, so I don't have to go to Italy to work with them. In fact, I've never met my clients in person. Alright, so why do people become digital freelancers? And again, the beach thing would be great, but I would say that for most people who actually make the plunge and become digital freelancers, it's just more about finding work-life balance. It's about setting your own hours, doing work that you like, when you want to do the work, and where you want to do it. Or it could be because you're like me and you have too many ideas to just fit into one job, and you want to diversify and you want to make money off of it. So, what influence does this have on tech? I would argue that it's making tech very collaborative and focused on outcomes. We will see clusters of freelancers coming together temporarily to work on projects and then more or less disbanding when the project is over. You can work with people on a project, again, in a different country, thousands of miles away, and you can work on more than one project at once. We're seeing a rise in lots of collaboration tools like Trello, so that you can manage projects sort of on a live basis without having to pass a bunch of emails back and forth. And we have video conferencing, of course, as well. So I would say that this is really great because it's scalable. So if you have a project that and demand calls for it, you can take extra people onto your team, and then when the project doesn't have demand for it anymore, those people move on to something else. They're responsible for finding their own source of income. So it's a very proactive environment. But the challenge that this leads to is fragmentation. So when you are working independently at home, usually just you and your internet connection, technically with other people, but not people you see in person, you don't have a lot of structure. So back when you were still an employee in a traditional setting, you worked for a business that had these various departments. You were only responsible for one. The others just hummed along quietly in the background. But when you become a digital freelancer, you are basically the CEO of a business. And whether you like it or not, you're responsible for putting adequate attention into these other areas, even if they're not really your primary skill. So in an ideal world, when you become a digital freelancer, you can handle this. You can learn the extra skills, or you can hire people to help you handle the extra skills that you don't currently have. But this is not an ideal world, and I'd say the ideal digital freelancer does not have equal balance like this. So what does the real digital freelancer look like? So again, we are not in a traditional office setting. We are working from home, not a lot of structure. I would say that we have maybe 1 or 2 primary skills. Those are the money makers. That's why we're a business and we're making income off of what we do. So I would say that we tend to have a business look more like this, kind of lopsided. 1 or 2 skills are getting most of the attention. The others are pretty undeveloped. Of course, this brings me to my main idea that I want to drive home here is that as a digital freelancer, of course you're very proactive. You want to learn. You're happy to do what it takes to make all of these things work, but you're kind of on your own. So you have to basically sift through thousands and thousands of e-learning resources on the internet to try to find the one that's going to serve you in your particular situation. And doing that without any structure, I think, is a bit like trying to solve a 5x5 Rubik's Cube without any instructions or anyone to help you. So how do we overcome this? How do we step back and see the big picture and see every aspect of our element that we need in order for our business to move forward? So I would say that working in a mastermind group is the key. A mastermind group is a group of peers. This kind of reminds me of what you were saying before about like finding people that are sort of on the same level as you. Finding a group of peers that you can meet with regularly, probably once a week, and each week someone's in the hot seat. You take turns, you rotate. When it's your turn to be in the hot seat, you come with a business problem or a set of business problems you're dealing with at the moment, and the other freelancers help you brainstorm solutions to the problem. It's great to have people in your mastermind group who have cross-functional skills that complement yours so that you can benefit from their expertise. And in the process, you can also help sort of mentor someone else. And that might be a bit of a wake-up call as well. You might sort of realize that, hey, I'm not doing such a bad job here. I do kind of know what I'm doing. So I think my mastermind group is what's helped me kind of have my success so far, and I have to say I've really loved being a digital freelancer so far. And with that, I'd like to end on a positive note. I interviewed a few different digital freelancers, and I just asked them, what is the most rewarding thing for you about being a digital freelancer so far? So Dave from the UK says it's being free to decide when you work, what you work on, and how that work is done. Brittany from the USA echoes his thoughts and says she has the freedom to be creative, set her own schedule, and pursue a lifelong dream. So with that, I thank you for your time. Please feel free to tweet me, and I will open up for questions.
Awesome, thank you. So, open up the floor. Got any questions for Ashley? Yeah, Mary.
I just wondered how you find a mastermind group.
Yes, good question. Well, so I'm not here to pitch myself, but I guess I'm pitching Innovation Birmingham a little bit, because it's places like this that are like a really amazing value for entrepreneurs in the tech field. I mean, yeah, if I lived closer to Birmingham, I would come here all the time and meet other people.
That's eforf.co.uk.
But otherwise, I mean, I would say that online collaboration platforms that are already out there, like, I don't know, Gitter or Reddit, are places where you can find people digitally who have similar interests as you. And my mastermind group meets online, so you can totally do it even if you are shy, even if you live far away from Birmingham. You can form a mastermind group of your own.
There we go, brilliant. Any more questions? James?
Yeah. Sorry, Joe.
Yes, please.
Come in. Oh,
Okay, fine.
anyway, sorry.
Attention hogging. I just, when I think of freelancing, I do think of six-figure salaries, and you said that it doesn't happen like that. And you know, you have a limited company, you take your dividends, you pay your minimum PAYE because it's tax efficient.
Okay.
If you look at city day rates, contracts not freelancing, you can go up to £600, £700 a day. Even if you're at £350 a day rate, which is very achievable for a freelancer from what I've seen. Why can't you hit the six figures? Is there something that I've never done freelancing, so how do you hit six figures?
Don't ask me. I don't have that. I haven't made six figures, so I couldn't tell you. But there are plenty of internet gurus that will gladly let you pay them money to give you that advice. So.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Yeah?
Stop holding the mic. Sorry. And then to the gentleman.
We're talking in the UK. We're talking lately a lot about the digital economy.
Yes.
I am curious about your thoughts on the future of work and retraining people during their midlife crisis. Really, I mean that people get disruption and all that.
Yeah.
It's really affecting some.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Well, I think that I think that what you see online is really low cost tools to help you start a business and especially market yourself. So you really can change careers, rebrand yourself, and market whatever it is that you want to offer, and really look good in the process. I mean, sometimes I worry it can be a little bit misleading. Sometimes I see people on the internet and I think like, wow, that guy knows what he's doing, but you never really know. So I mean, you can really start a business at any stage of your career.
That must be me then. Okay, I mean, my background is 16 years. I was in IT in the corporate side. In December 2014, on Christmas Eve actually, I quit my job because I just had enough and decided to become a digital guy. And not to the concern of my wife, because we worried about mortgage and everything else like that, but because I felt that I needed to do something whilst I had the chance to. So a year's gone past, and I set up a little company, and I did a bit of freelancing and just to put my toe in and stuff like that. And it's not been too bad, so it's very interesting to hear that your thoughts on it, because I'm certainly one of those guys that took the plunge, and 6 figures I'm working on. It is possible, because I've met a couple of 6-figure guys, and I have wondered how the hell they do it as well, and they won't tell me. So, but I do have hope that I will get there. I collaborate, which goes on to the previous speaker. I do collaborate with guys abroad, purely because they have the technical knowledge and the stuff that within your diagram. I only have maybe 2 of those balls properly, because that's from experience. All the other stuff is over my head, so I have to rely on other guys to fill in the blanks. But in saying that, if you do manage your business and you do manage your project and take ownership of your project, which is key, then you do find a reasonable way of charging what you're worth. I always believe that you should charge what you think you're worth. That's only because I spent 16 years being paid for what I wasn't worth. So, but if you do charge a good rate, then you can be competitive, especially in the UK, and also against guys that are abroad. And I do spend most of my days in pyjamas, so it's just quite fun.
Very comfortable.
Yeah, it's really comfortable. But yeah, it's possible, so I'm just putting it out there that, yeah, it is possible.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. Great question.
Question, yeah. It is a question.
Do we have any more questions? Just maybe handle one more if there is one. No? Okay, awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you very much. Courseware, our final speaker, Mary, has come all the way from E4F, just up the corridor. Mary actually did go through the E4F programme and has stayed on after graduating from the programme. She's doing really, really well. It's great to have her as part of our community here. While Mary's sorting that out, can we have another 1-minute pitch from someone? Yes, the gentleman in the blue. Yep.
Hi, I'm just basically offering my services. I have a background in IT infrastructure, networking. I've done contracting for a lot of large firms here like SCC, BT Services, and some other stuff. Dell as well. Lived in just came back from America 2 years ago. I was living out there for about 10 years. So my main thing is basically, as I said, systems infrastructure on the enterprise basis, network infrastructure. I'm sort of like a level 3 network person. So if you have any of your companies you're looking at ways to develop your infrastructure, if you're trying to troubleshoot it or anything like that, I'll have my services and willing to come speak to me. And if you've got system issues that you want to look at, I have a system admin background as well, so looking to maybe cross-train and just basically look at more opportunities to use my skills. So come speak to me afterwards. Okay, thanks.
Mary.
First of all, hello everybody, I'm Mary. I must apologise, I've got a stinking cold, so if I start coughing in the middle, just kind of talk amongst yourselves. From the first couple of talks, I think I'm in the wrong business, because I don't get to wear my pyjamas often.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, perfect. So I think one of the kind of themes that's running through this evening is that actually changing career and changing focus is really feasible. And what I thought I would do was kind of take you through my life story. And that will really show you that I've actually changed quite a lot, and I've done many different things before I actually came into tech. Here I am at about 10 years old. This is my first confirmation, and at this age I really have no idea what I want to do. The space race is going on at this time, so being an astronaut actually was really something that was kind of possible in my mind, even though of course it wasn't really. It seemed impossibly glamorous to be an air hostess and travel all over the world at this time. Of course now air travel is so ubiquitous. But what I really wanted to be was an actress, but I wasn't allowed to be an actress because you just couldn't, it just wasn't done. What I actually ended up doing was starting to work in broadcasting, and this was my first job, so that's not actually me sitting at that broadcast desk, that is one of my colleagues, but that is one of the broadcast desks that I did work on. This is in BBC Radio Leicester, a local radio station, and I was taken in like a kind of a junior producer. And we used to call this driving a desk. And you can see why, because there's lots of knobs and dials and switches, and you had to control the output, you had to cue up the records, you actually had to turn the turntable on, hold the record in place on a slip mat, and then let it go, and you had to tee it up so that it didn't go I mean, God, this was steam radio. Also, at this time it was a bit like working in a telephone exchange, so you actually had to plug sources together. So things weren't already embedded. You actually had to take a double-ended jack, stick it in one hole, into the other to make sure that one output would go into one input, and then that would come out through the desk. Now, it sounds really amazing now to think about that, but that was really almost like being a junior engineer. It was really practical, really hands-on. It made you think really logically about how things went in and how things went out and how you got everything onto the air. I have to admit I wasn't very good at it. I once put the station off the air overnight, and that turned the transmitter off, and so our chief engineer, who's down here on the left, actually had to drive out to the transmitter and restart it on the site. I was terrible. So after about a couple of years doing this, I realised that I was terrible at the practical side, but what I really liked doing was interviewing people, so I went and retrained and became a journalist. Yeah, so
I was a freelance. So initially I was staff with the BBC, and then I went freelance and moved into television. I think the other insight you'll get from this presentation is how hairstyles have changed over the years. And so the kind of skills that I developed here were really about being very persuasive. So you had to get people to talk to you. You had to get people to open up so you could get the great interview. Obviously, you had to be really, really clear about what you were asking people, and you also had to be quite analytical about the answers they were giving. And then you had to kind of condense all of that into something that was easily understood by many, many people. So some really great skills came from my time being a journalist. And I did this for about 10 years or so. And I worked for Channel 4 News, I worked for Sky News, London Weekend Television, Thames Television. I did a mix of on-the-road reporting and studio interviewing and newsreading. And yeah, I had a great time. It was fantastic, and I developed some amazing skills which actually have stood me in good stead in business as well. After a few years doing this, I decided that it was time to have a family. And once I got a family, I found that it was really hard to find the impetus to be first with the story. I lost my journalistic edge, if you like. And so I reinvented myself again. So now I'm living in Worcestershire rather than London. And the first thing I did part-time was doing some PR for a travel agency, an inbound travel agency. I found I hated PR. I hated being enthusiastic about things I didn't really believe in. I did a bit of regulatory work with the Independent Television Commission. I joined Advantage West Midlands, which was the regional development agency, and led strategy for investment in digital media. And part of that, I was looking at the West Midlands video games industry, because at that time around 25% of the UK's industry was based in the West Midlands. But like all businesses that are quite project-led, there was very much a kind of a boom and bust cycle. So very much companies would get a contract or have a project on the go, but they didn't have enough capacity to be able to plan ahead for the next project. So you'd get companies forming, doing great things, and then going under. And so I was looking at what was going on in the US and the emerging field of what was then called serious games. So using the same techniques and technologies to support people to learn or change their behaviour. And I persuaded Advantage West Midlands that actually the West Midlands could be a leader in this field, and so I was instrumental in setting up the Serious Games Institute at Coventry University. And as part of that, hallelujah, I was actually poached by a games company. Woohoo! So I joined Blitz Game Studios, and I worked on some awesome technology. I worked on a kind of a simulator game for triage. I was involved in the business development for the Coca-Cola Polar Bears campaign for the Super Bowl, where the bears were live puppeted across the internet and responded to people's tweets. That was absolutely groundbreaking stuff. But the thing I'm probably most proud of is securing a contract from the US Department of Defense to create a motion-controlled game for rehabilitation. And the thing I'm really proud of here is that actually I was involved in the concept development rather than just securing the contract. And the thing that has struck me about games, serious games, was that they were po-faced. They were very, very serious. And actually what was needed was to bring some game into that serious game. And so this was actually a shooter game because it was for the military, and it wasn't just sort of can you move your arm according to your prescribed prescription. It was can you move your arm in the way that you need to, and if you do, you get to shoot a gun. And it went really well. Anyway, the thing that I kind of thing that happened here was that I realised how much I was missing that creativity, and I really wasn't getting enough opportunity. And during this period my sister died, and that was one of those wake-up moments where you think, what am I doing with my life? And so I left and I set up my own business, and the first iteration of Memrica was connecting your favourite memories to the things around you. It was monetised by the sale of jewellery, with the idea that you could give the gift of a piece of jewellery with memories embedded in it, and then you could use your smartphone to look at that piece of jewellery and instantly see the memories you'd been gifted. It was a disaster. It really didn't work very well. The technology worked, but the business concept was quite difficult to get across, and I wasn't brilliant at marketing. But people started talking to me about using this to support people with dementia. And so what we're doing now is creating a backup memory that automatically collates context about people, places and events that are personal to you. And so you can ask this app, it emulates the way memory works. You can ask it, where does John live? How do I know Susan? When am I going to the dentist? And it will find you that information. I think I've skipped a slide there, but anyway. So just to kind of sum up, the joys and challenges of being a non-technical founder. It was at the video games company that for the very first time I realised that I understood technical concepts. I didn't know that about myself, and that is, I think, a great comfort to anyone who wants to change career stream, because if you can learn something new about yourself, fairly, more mature age, I have to say, that's really exciting. It's really thrilling to learn that actually you can do something different. So being able to jump into something new does have its joys and its challenges. I think one of the things that is really great is that you are learning new stuff every day, and you do have to take it day by day, and that's really exciting. So what I've learned, and the difference between, I guess, my old career and my new career, is that in my old career I had to be right. If I was on the television saying the Queen Mother had died, the Queen Mother better be dead. As a technical founder, actually, if things go wrong, that's good because you learn from it, and you can move on from it, and it's not such a black and white affair. I think the other thing is that I know we often hear there's a lot of talk about sexism in tech. There are not enough women working in tech, and it is considered very often to be a young career. What I've found, actually, is that it's quite meritocratic. Google, for example, has just started a Founders Over 50 program. We are seeing different people coming into tech because the tech is so accessible, because the tools are there, because we're all using it, and we all have this new language emerging, and I think that's so important. The other thing I've learned is that being cool is great. I mean, when I worked at the games company, I was the coolest man in the world. That was so amazing. But it's not enough. You really do have to feel that you have purpose in what you're doing. And that's what I feel I have now. And that is why I'm enjoying life. And I'm so, so pleased to be a tech founder over 50. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. That's really, really interesting to hear your story. Have you got any questions for Mary? Yeah.
Hi, a great story, by the way.
Thank you.
So you grew up with the space race. Going through the arc of your story, from space to sound technician to media to journalism to games, PR, and all that, and games, right? What are your thoughts on the resurgence of space travel right now? And what are your thoughts of linking the games industry with the aerospace? They're tough technologies in either side. I'm just curious about.
I think that's a really interesting question, because when I grew up, the space race was something that was so exciting. And it kind of fell by the wayside after the moon landings, and now we are seeing landings on comets, we're seeing us exploring the further reaches of the solar system, we're seeing a resurgence in science fiction films and books, and I think we are now beginning to look again beyond our planet, and I think that's really exciting. Technology, and games technology in particular, I mean, we've got a lot of science fiction games obviously on the shelves, I think allows us to expand our imagination. And a lot of the science that was first kind of imagined in a series like Star Trek is now becoming real. There is a competition in the US to create a tricorder medical examiner, for example. I think that marrying the two together really does help our imagination run free, and if we're not careful, sometimes technology becomes a bit bounded. We only think about the devices we have now, we think about having the same experiences but using technology. So for example, putting on a 3D headset and having the same experience you might have outside. Actually, technology can take us further than that. It can actually make our imagination come real, and I think that's where we need to think next.
Hi Mary, really liked your story.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you, you said you have to take everything one day at a time, being a tech founder, and it's often a roller coaster ride. I'm a co-founder of a tech company myself, and I just wondered, how did you cope with all the things you didn't know about? Because there's often more things you don't know about than you do, and when you needed to sort of be resilient, what things have helped you in those difficult times?
Yeah, I mean, being part of a community I think really, really helps, so that you've got other people who have been through very similar experiences and you can ask them. And in fact, I've been doing that over the last couple of days, something that I'm facing at the moment. Actually, having a network is really, really great. I mean, whether it's your mastermind network or whether it is a physical community. I think also being able to draw upon past experience of things that have gone right and things that have gone wrong really helps. And actually, sometimes it just comes down to gut feeling. Now, when it's something that actually is outside of your experience, like a technical decision, the way I approach that is to say, how is that going to impact on either the end user or the time it's going to take to test with the end user? So trying to put it into practical terms, I guess, so that it feels to me as if I understand not necessarily what's going to be done or how it's going to be built, but I understand the impact, and that's really important. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Good, yeah.
Can anyone hear me?
I think it's
good.
Yeah.
It's just less of a question and more of a thank you. I think the way you've highlighted how you crossed over is really good for non-techies in terms of basically the transferable skills that you have. I think it's quite important, and it's kind of undervalued how important a non-techie perspective is to the techie world, because it brings so much value, and I was quite thankful that you kind of mentioned it really, so thanks for that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Hi. I was just wondering, you mentioned it actually a bit in your last answer, but how did you go about structuring your team with you not being from a tech background, and how have you looked to develop it, and also how's that partnership between you and that tech lead?
Yeah, so this actually is an interesting question, because when I first started to look at what I wanted to do, the first thing I did was to ask ex-colleagues from the games industry to say, I want to do this, who should I look for, what qualities should I be looking for? And that actually turned out to be not necessarily very helpful, because we were talking about different technologies, different code bases. And so then people began to recommend me other people to talk to, and it became really gut feeling, I have to say, that in the first instance it was very much, can I do business with this person? Do I trust them? Do I think that they are going to deliver for me? Can they talk to me in a way that I will understand what they're doing and the impact that will have on my plan? And I learned a lot doing it that way. So I started to work with a contractor and then moved on to another contractor. And that kind of learning curve in managing a contractor and being able to kind of have those conversations and increasing my own technical knowledge at the same time actually has led me to be able to recruit and be confident that I've made the right decisions. But again, I have relied upon my network to say, what do you think? And that has been very valuable.
Thank you. Hey. Thank you. As somebody who's spent a great deal of time in creating a platform to deliver serious games, cloud-based, there seems to be, maybe it's just at expense, but it's really slow to see serious games coming through. Maybe it's because of price. My sense also is because it's devoid of a tutor-led experience. But I'm just interested in your perspective, because you've moved on from that world, but as you look back, what's the barrier to serious games replacing old-fashioned online learning mechanisms which can be cheated? Gamification has got compliance, serious games has got compliance woven into it, and yet it's still not been taken up, and I'm really puzzled by that.
Yeah, I think there are a number of issues that kind of come to play here. One is, what is the market? So serious games started off really, I think, as you say, trying to replace online learning or augment online learning. But the people, those buyers were not yet, or maybe are still not yet, actually ready to make that leap because they don't trust it. A lot of people in those early days would say, if people are having fun, then that can't be serious and therefore it can't be right. And that, I think, led people to create things that were very process-led, were validated, and there was no fun. And so there was a kind of a middle ground where nothing was really working. So it wasn't fun enough for people to want to do it, to have a great experience, but equally it was not valid enough in those early stages for people to have confidence that this was actually going to deliver the learning outcomes that they were looking for, that the commissioners of it were looking for. I think since then, things have changed, but I think the key issue is still who is buying this. Who and what are their expectations? So in an entertainment game, you've got a strong consumer market and they've got a very strong expectation of what their experience is going to be. In a serious game, or a game for learning, a game for training, there is still an issue of and I think the holy grail was the expectation that game-based technology and game-based learning would be a motivator. People would want to do it. But actually, I think we still have the issue that you have to be motivated to do the game, to learn something. You still have to be motivated to learn, to take up that game. And so the consumer market is quite difficult unless you're already motivated. On the commissioning side, I think things are moving on. So you are beginning to see some, well, certainly the military are one of the early adopters and always have been. But I think the other thing that really irritates me is that sometimes gamification is seen as an end in its own right. And gamification only works when you are motivated and you value the reward that you get through that game. So if you value the reward you're given, then you will continue performing and you will continue engaging in the game. In an entertainment game, the value is the entertainment in its own right and the challenge it gives you as the player. I don't think gamification replaces that yet. I also think that some games, when you take the gamification out or you remove it, you're expecting behaviour to have been changed at an underlying level, whereas actually what you've been doing is masking behaviour change through reward-based incentives. So what you're seeing is people responding to a reward rather than actually changing their internal motivators. So extrinsic versus intrinsic. I don't think that yet has been cracked. I mean, some of the, the great, Zombies Run, for example, is a good, serious game. It motivates you to run because you think you've got a horde of zombies chasing you. But that only works if you want to run in the first place. So if you don't want to run, is it really that motivating? So that one of the most studied games in the world, Remission, cancer compliance game, cancer drug compliance game for young people, has been shown to work really, really well to promote compliance with drug taking for cancer in young adults. But of course, it's very, very specifically crafted to do just that. And the learning from that is not necessarily transferable into other games. So I think there's a whole host of areas, to be honest. I don't think there's one answer.
One more minute. We've got two more.
I just wanted to congratulate you and thank you for your presentation. Also, as a non-tech, I actually took the microphone because I'm actually non-tech myself. That spent pretty much a decade online, and being non-tech, I've come Global Entrepreneurship Week 2013 top 50 across 100 countries, 2015 on IBM Global Program, and just recently with Warwick University and Ignite Program. So the achievements are there as a non-tech. I think really it's not about tech and non-tech, it's more about entrepreneurial spirit, and that's what I got from your presentation. Is if you're an entrepreneur and you're passionate about what you do and you believe in what you're doing, it'll take you anywhere, and that's what the internet's about.
Hello. A question about the app that you're developing now. So it's for Alzheimer and dementia sufferers. I'd imagine the vast majority of which have never used a smartphone or would know how to find an app or use one if they got one. So is that a challenge, and if so, how are you dealing with it?
So I think we have, it's about memory issues generally. It's not just for early dementia, it's brain injury, stroke, mild cognitive impairment, chemo brain, pregnancy brain, any time that your memory is impacted. I think we have a perception of dementia as only affecting the very elderly. In fact, that's not the case. We've got probably about 10% of people with a diagnosis of dementia, and that's with a diagnosis of dementia, under 65, and many, many more who actually don't have a diagnosis, who are struggling with their memory. So actually, when I looked at this, I realised that the gap in the market was for people who actually have grown up with smart technology, who need that kind of support, who will engage with this kind of technology because they're used to it. And because they're used to it, there's no new learning curve, and that means it can instantly support them. And so, for those people, no, there is no adoption problem. The issue comes if they really do have a diagnosis of dementia, then they will lose the ability to use that later down the line. At that point, family can step in to support them. There's a connected web dashboard that goes with this. But yes, the aim is to prolong independence as long as possible.
Okay, thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you.
Oh, well, amazing talks. Thank you guys so much for coming and talking to us. The pizza hasn't arrived, so we can go and do that. Do come and talk to me if you're interested in E4F. Next Tech Wednesday is the 16th of March, third Wednesday of March, 4 weeks today. And it actually falls within Birmingham's Digital Cities Week, so there's a lot going on that week. It's the BBC Digital Cities Week for Birmingham, so check that out on the website because there'll be loads of other stuff that you'll want to go to that week, and none of it clashes with Tech Wednesday, so you can't use that as an excuse.